the issue was how they went about doing it
Yes.
and how they demonized him in the local press
Yes.
at the same time.
Yes.
And they never told the public,
Nope.
nor did they ever tell the jury of the systemic in depth mental health history
Yes.
of your husband.
Yes.
Greetings, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the People's Global News Network. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. Thank you once again for tuning in to another episode of the People's Global News Network. Here at the People's Global News Network, we bring you the stories that most networks and people are afraid to tell. We bring you the stories with the raw, unadulterated truth and the facts. And here at the People's Global News Network, we expose corruption, lies, misconduct, prosecutorial or judicial misconduct. Wherever we find it, police corruption, we expose it. We're going to bring a story to you today of a young African American male who was absolutely failed by the system, exploited by the system, and in the end, the system used him to scapegoat when all they had to do was be honest about his medical condition, the history of his medical condition, and there's no way a jury would have looked at this young man the way they did because of prosecutorial misconduct. His wife joins us here today. His cousin is here with us today. Take us from the very beginning of this case and this particular incident that put this young man in prison. Who wants to start first? Go ahead.
When the incident happened that day, um, he had called me and he didn't know where he was. Like, he was trying to look for me. So when I was talking to him, I was like, "Where are you at? Can you describe anything? Can you see anything?" And he was just saying that everything that he sees was pitch black. He didn't know where he was. So I'm on the phone with him. I'm trying to talk to him, trying to see, because I'm looking for him as well. All I hear was, "Oh shit," and the phone went blank. And at that time, I didn't know that's when that incident happened with the gentleman.
The accident,
Yeah,
the
the
gentleman
accident.
being hit
Yeah,
and ran over in complete
yes,
darkness on the road. Okay,
yes.
go ahead.
So when one of his friends called me, they told me where he was, and I drove over there. And the police stopped me, and I was like, "That's my car. Where's my husband? I'm looking for my husband." They didn't want to tell me nothing. They didn't say nothing to me. They told me I needed to go home. I guess my husband heard my voice and he wasn't already in the back seat of a car. So he was screaming and trying to get out to get to me. But the cops was like, "You need to leave." And I'm like, "Can you please tell me what's going on? Why is my husband in the car?" And he's like, "I can't tell you nothing. I can't tell you nothing." So we left. I left. My sister went back with me and she made them tell me what happened.
Mm.
That was the only reason why they told me the situation. Because if not, I would have found out like everybody else. Nobody would have said anything to
How
me.
did you learn about the situation involving this recent accident
When
that
my
landed your loved one in prison?
when my cousin Connie called me, Concepcion called me and told me, and we had just me and Johnny and my cousin just experienced my son being murdered, and his case was supposed to be taken care of before any of this incident happened with my cousin Johnny, which was injustice to me, and it was sad to me. And then me going to his court dates all the time and them playing in his face, and it was racist, and them leaving stuff out. I didn't like that because that's my hometown. I'm born and raised there, and I want to be fair, and everything should be fair. I was fair when my son murderer who took my son's life. I understood and I was being fair because I knew the individual didn't want to kill my son. I knew it wasn't something done on purpose. And the way that they handled my cousin Johnny is wrong because they just wanted to throw another black man in jail. And on top of that, the DA was put in my case last, and I wore my shirt with my son's name, and he knew what he was doing, and him and the judge made me get out of court for my shirt that had my son pictures and stuff on it, which didn't have nothing to do with the court. But the DA knew what he was doing. He was trying to make a big because he was leaving. So he was trying to make something big for himself. I don't know how to describe it if I'm saying it right, but that's just what he did. And he played it in my face. He knew that was my cousin. They knew it. And I was showing it in so many ways respectfully, but they still didn't do him right. And I don't like that.
When you say that they did things to disrespect him in court, give us some examples.
He was not himself. He didn't remember everything from the drug that he has history on, which y'all will see. The lawyers and all them and the DA, they all knew each other and they were speaking to each other. They don't take no genius or anyone to figure that out. I watched them. I'm very observant, and I didn't like it. It was unfair. They didn't even give him enough time to do anything. We still was grieving my son's murder. He got murdered in 2016, and then you'll look at the date when they charged him, sentenced him, and my case was still put to the last.
They did compare my husband to a dog.
Explain that part where you say they compared your husband, and when you say they, be specific about who the they are.
The DA, Stephen Tyler, compared him to a dog. I guess bringing up his juvenile past history from juvenile till now, he was like, just like a dog will come and attack or whatever. And when I did say my husband is not a dog, don't compare him to that, the judge had me banned out of the court.
So, your husband was charged with having an accident on a dark road. And what year was this?
In 2018.
It was in a parking lot.
2018.
Yes.
The dark road.
2018. And this gentleman was a white man that he hit.
Yes.
A retired veteran.
Yes.
And we all respect his service.
Yes.
And nobody in your family, I believe, was saying that there should not be a consequence for this. But the issue was how they went about doing it.
Yes.
And how they demonized him in the local press.
Yes.
At the same time.
Yes.
And they never told the public.
Nope.
Nor did they ever tell the jury of the systemic, in-depth mental health history of your husband.
Yes.
We found out through our investigation, which was shocking to us, he was a man that had been put on multiple psychotropic medications throughout his life, and that he had a deep, profound mental health history. And the court was aware of this. The judge was aware of this. And they even had to have psychiatrists and people extended from the court to evaluate your husband to make sure he was competent to stand trial. But all of this was kept from the jury. The jury never had a chance to know his mental health history and to know that he had not been properly taking those meds.
He was trying.
And because he was not properly taking those meds, because he had problem gaining access to those medications, because he didn't have health insurance, and he did not have a system of medical insurance in place that allowed him to maintain consistent prescriptions to where he could consistently take this medication. The judge knew this, the DA knew this, but they did not allow the jury to know of this young man's mental health history and that he was unable to gain access to prescribed medication, multiple prescriptions, and they kept it quiet like this young man was sane, he was competent, and he just drove over somebody in cold blood.
Nope, he didn't. They ran to him.
They used our conversations as that he was competent, because I would tell him, I was trying to help him because he couldn't talk. He couldn't talk right. He talked like a little kid, no understanding. So I would tell him, when you call me, listen. It's going to tell you how much is on the phone, or I think after it'll tell you how much. Let me know so I know to go put money on there. So they were trying to say that he knew what he was doing. And I'm just like, no. I mean, if y'all really listening to the conversations, you would hear me telling him and trying to talk to him. I'm talking really slow. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he'll be like, hey, you have to talk to him like that, like real slow.
Almost like you're talking to a toddler.
Yes.
And let me point something out to the viewing audience. There is no such thing as a friendly conversation when your loved one calls you from a correctional facility. Let me say it again. You are not having a private, friendly conversation when your loved one calls you from a correctional facility. It is being recorded. In fact, it's in the contract. Whatever cell provider or network provider that provides telephone service to a correctional facility, it's mandated in the contract that they record every single conversation and turn that conversation over to jail officials and prosecutors upon request. So when you speak to your loved one, be cognizant of the fact you are being recorded, and they're going to attempt to use those recordings against you and your loved one. Go right ahead.
He was in fear of his life. That's what he would tell me. He didn't really want to eat anything there because he felt like they were trying to harm him. He didn't trust. He was scared of his lawyer. So I did try to fire his lawyer, but he said I couldn't do it. It would have to be Johnny. So I told Johnny that, and Johnny was like, okay. So they went in front of the judge, and he tried to fire him. He told the judge, I do not feel safe with him. I don't feel comfortable. He's not trying to help me. And the judge denied him on that and said, no, you have to have him as your lawyer.
And tell everybody where this is.
Victoria, Texas.
Let's say it again.
Victoria, Texas.
The legendary, racist South Victoria, Texas, that has a systemic legacy of just ramrodding and railroading African American men and brown men in particular into the penal institutions without truly giving them adequate due process, adequate counsel, and not even turning over all of the evidence during motions of discovery. But the judges never hold prosecutors accountable for supporting perjured testimony, withholding evidence, because the jury never knew. This young man literally had the mindset of a 5-year-old.
So
Go ahead, I'm listening. Tell us more.
So when we
in Victoria, Texas.
When we tried to hire a lawyer, the judge told the guy, Dion Craig, that we were going to hire, that he could be on the case, but he had to sit on the sideline, and he only had 10 days to look over it because they were not going to stall this trial.
We looked into that allegation. That's exactly right. They tried to hire an attorney. The attorney was willing to come on to the case. The judge would not give the attorney time to even properly prepare a defense for his client, and gave the attorney only a couple of days to be ready for trial, then had the nerve to not get rid of the lawyer that they were trying to replace, kept him on the case, and told the new lawyer, you can come on, but you can sit there, you can observe, but you can't say nothing. Let me say it again. The judge told the new lawyer, you can be involved in the case. You can't make any opening statements. You can't make any closing remarks. And you cannot cross-examine any witnesses. What the hell is that? If that's not a sham mockery of a trial, then what is? And the very lawyer that her husband and the family objected to, who they did not want on the case, that they were willing to hire a counsel, the judge said, no, we gonna keep this man on the case. And you know why I believe the judge did that? Because they knew the lawyer that was on the case, he was bought and paid for and under their control. And they felt comfortable that he would give them the outcome they were looking for.
And he wasn't even supposed to be the judge on the case. It was supposed to be Eli Garza, and Robert Bell came from Edna, and he's a known racist. He's the one that took my husband's trial.
Judge Robert Bell.
Yes.
Look up the history of Judge Robert Bell, and you'll be surprised. Look into his history. Do some real in-depth research, and you will see some things about Judge Robert Bell to where no black man or brown man should ever want him involved in their case.
So, the newspaper, they were doing the trial. During the trial, the newspaper guy came out and he interviewed me. And I had told them that I didn't know why they weren't bringing in the toxicology report. The hospital tested him for PCP, marijuana, and came back positive. It was 99.9% positive. So, when he was like, okay, the DA, Stephen Tyler, was across from me. So the newspaper guy went over there to talk to him, and he looked at me and he said they were not going to use that because it ain't 100% accurate.
Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, after this accident, like they normally do in cases like this, when the suspect is taken to the hospital, they get a warrant for a forced blood draw to see if there's alcohol or controlled substances in the suspect's system to strengthen the prosecutor's case. In this particular case, they saw this young man had a large amount of PCP in his system, another controlled substance, and they were going to use that until they found out about the in-depth systemic mental health history of your husband. And from our investigative research with our investigators, they did not want the jury to hear anything about the PCP in the system and his mental health history because they were afraid that the jury would take some sympathy on him. And so to have a jury take no sympathy and to give him the max, they withheld this vital information from the jury with the lawyer's help for your husband.
And that's what's crazy because I sent him the video. I showed him a video of my husband being on it before. And he said to me, he don't think it's a good idea to use this because it would hurt him. It would hurt his case.
Even though the lawyer knew that this young man had already been ruled mentally incompetent to stand trial in the beginning. They had already ruled he was mentally incompetent to stand trial. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, they never told the jury that he had to be sent off to a mental health institution because he had been ruled by psychiatrists and clinicians that he was mentally incompetent to stand trial. The jury never heard any of this. They made the jury think that this was a sound, sane-minded man who just ran over somebody with no compassion and no sympathy. And that was absolutely not the case and could not be furthest from the truth as the devil is from God. They really took this man through a kangaroo court to make sure in Victoria, Texas, that he would not receive a fair trial and that a jury would show him no sympathy. Give us more about what happened.
Well, like I said, like in the trial, they kept me out. I was supposed to testify on his behalf. It was supposed to be me, his mom, my son, and they never called us. I got into it with one of their private investigators, I guess, and the lawyer, because he had two. It was Keith Weiser and the other one was Dillard. I got into it with Dillard and the private investigator, and I was like, y'all knew y'all weren't going to use me to testify, and y'all kept me out of the trial when I could have been there supporting my husband when he didn't have nobody in there besides his cousin.
So let's talk about that. How many people were called to testify about your husband's case on his behalf?
It was supposed to be me, my son, my mother-in-law. I want to say Deidre.
Me.
Yeah.
So,
and his friend, but that was on his character witness.
Let me explain something to the public. In Texas, if they have you down as a witness to testify in a case, you're not allowed to be in the courtroom. And often what prosecutors will do, they'll put you down as a witness for the state to be called by the state, but yet they never intend to call you. And it's often they'll put family members or those who are favorable toward the defendant on their witness list to keep you out of the courtroom. And they're never going to call you, but they can keep you out. The reason why they do that, because they want the jury to think that you have no one in your family or friends that are willing to come to court and testify on your behalf. And so the jury thinks this man has nobody here supporting him. He must be a bad person. He must be a bad man, when this is all a concocted scheme and trick to make a jury believe you have no support by prosecutors. All of you all were on the witness list, and not a single one of you were called.
No, and then they said if you have a like if you have a background, I have a little background, but it's not bad or anything like that. Nothing to do with drugs, nothing. They was like, that's not a good idea because they'll bring up your background. Well, I didn't care about bringing up my background. I'm here to speak for my cousin, his rights, and for us, we're grieving already, and they're taking his case before my son's case, which is his cousin. Y'all rushing his and putting me last, and mine's happened once again, June 8th, 2016. My son had to be laid to rest, and they put him last, my son last, because I try not to think of a race card, but my son's black, and the veteran is what?
Right. Let me say this also to the family of that veteran. You absolutely have all of our condolences
Yes.
and
Yes.
our prayers.
Yes.
Not a single member of this family nor this network does not empathize and sympathize and grieve with you for the
Yes.
loss of your loved one.
Yes.
No human being's life is not sacred. Every life is sacred.
Yes.
You have our condolences and our prayers. But what we're here advocating against
Yes.
is a corrupt system,
Yes.
is a system that takes advantage of mentally ill patients and exploits them for political gain and political careers. So it's expeditiously supporting a DA and judge who wants to be elected and reelected. This is all a stage show, but at the expense of poor people and mentally ill people who they know don't have a voice, who they know they can take advantage of. It's shameful. As they say in the streets, it's ratchet. But until we start exposing and telling the truth about cases like this, it's going to continue. Remember, grandmother always said, when you walk into a dark room and cut on the lights, the roaches start running. It is time that the lights be turned on in Victoria, Texas. These small Texas towns and in the state of Texas, period, they're treating young black and brown men like cannon fodder
Yes.
in the criminal justice system. Tell us about how much time the jury gave him.
They gave my husband 40 years. The DA was telling them to give my husband life. They kept, when they would go on breaks, the judge was, I guess, rearranging, like telling them, no, scratch this off, scratch that. So they were having to retype things for his. So never once was it like manslaughter. Everything was like murder.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something else that's really shameful. The prosecutors did push for a life sentence. And when the jury gave him 40 years, after everything being withheld from them, the prosecutor had a nerve to get upset and angry with the jury. The prosecutor had a real dirty attitude and was giving dirty looks and making dirty little comments under his breath, according to witnesses,
Yes.
to the jury after they came back and didn't give the young man life and give him 40 years. What the hell is really going on in Victoria, Texas?
Corruption.
And it is time that it be exposed. What else would you like the public to know about your husband and your family member?
My husband's not a bad man. Unfortunately, it was a bad choice, but he's really not a bad man. He will give you the shirt off his back. You know, he's a loving a loving husband, a loving father. He's a good friend.
Yes.
You know, we all have skeleton, like,
We all have our challenges.
yeah.
No one's
We all
perfect.
we all have a demon chasing us somewhere.
Yes.
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 Go right ahead.
We're all sinners, and he's just a calm person. And me and him, we're close. We stay to ourselves. We don't bother anyone, And to for the court system to fail him like that, and where we're born and raised, it was sad, and it was sad for me to have to endure that and see that that take place because I was putting myself in the family because they grieving. So I know what it feels like. So I have compassion. I have insight. All our family have compassion and insight. We just wanted fair justice. It wasn't given. They weren't playing the video with audio. They were hitting him in the video, but they left the audio out. They were leaving stuff out because he was not himself. The video shows him going in there slowly, not zoom, like he was hitting people. No, they were going to him, and if they played the audio, we probably hear all kind of stuff they was telling him in that car, and he's lost and scared, don't know where he at, trying to communicate with his wife. They just did him wrong.
Let me ask you a question. Had your husband been on his medication properly and had access to the prescription meds that he needed, do you think we'd be sitting here?
No, because we did try to get him help, and we went through Gulf Bend. They told us to go see this doctor. I took him to the doctor. The doctor denied him and said, "Oh, he's fine, but he needs his medicine." And he's always told me that he's always been on medicine.
And y'all applied for Social Security to help him
to get like Medicaid and stuff. But yeah,
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a factual reality in America, and that reality is it is hell to be poor. I want to thank each and every member who always faithfully tunes in to the People's Global News Network. I thank you for always sharing and advocating on behalf of the families with the stories that we bring. And I thank you for your continued support. And this family thanks you as we attempt by God's grace to get this man a new trial.
Yes.
That's what the goal is, to overturn his conviction, get him a new trial, and let all the evidence be presented to a jury and let a jury make a proper decision from there.
Yes.
Not a jury that will be mocked, cursed, and mistreated by those in positions of authority because they did not do what prosecutors wanted done. Thank you for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, to the QX. Thank you for tuning in, for being with us. Thank you for supporting Quanell X as you always do. And thank you for supporting the People's Global News Network. We will update you about this case as it progresses. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.